Run intro scene. I don't have it and I can't push it. Yep. Middle of the left side, we need it muted, unmuted. Well, we botched that one. So instead of reciting the Airman's Creed, I'm just going to explain what's going on. Mike Carbajal, we miss you so much.
So much, buddy.
Please come back.
Please get
we
better
don't know
first.
what we're doing, and we need you here to run this show.
I can't live without you.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's the Back and Forth, the Air Force Recruiting Service's only live stream, and we are down a producer, which you can tell because it's not even this screen, which I should have hit. Oh, it's not even. See, that's why it's not working. Man, cool.
But we're
Well,
here.
we are.
Hello.
So I am Tech Sergeant Greg Cerny.
And I am Senior Master Sergeant Autumn Rose Johnson.
And we are doing our best to make this show entertaining for everyone, including ourselves, because there was no audio, and then there was no video, and we miss you, Mike.
We do miss
Anyway,
you. But here we are, and we are ready to rock and roll and jump into the back and forth.
what is
we're here.
today's show about?
We are going to talk about humanitarian mission sets that the Air Force is a part of, which is pretty cool because a lot of folks don't even know that we do such things. Yeah. So we have 3 incredible guests today, which we're really excited to have and introduce. We're going to let them introduce themselves and give us a quick little who you are and what you do.
Let's start with Lieutenant Colonel Curtin down in the bottom right. Please introduce yourself, sir, and let us know who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
All right, good afternoon. Dan Curtin. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel Tactical Air Control Party called TACP Officer, and I'm currently the Division Chief for Air National Guard Recruiting and Retention out of Joint Base Andrews in Maryland.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Master Sergeant Thomas, how about you? And welcome back to the show, by the way.
Yeah, welcome
Thank you
back.
for having me again. Master Sergeant Thomas, I am a U.S. Air Force pararescueman. I operated for a while, and that's why I'm on the show, and I'll tell you guys some missions that I did on my back end. And then I went into active duty from reserves and became an instructor, and then I became a recruiter, and now I'm the branch superintendent over here at HQ AFRS, running all special warfare when it comes to recruiting. So
That's pretty sweet. So you're kind of a big deal.
no.
I saw before, so in our warm up and when we were setting up everything up for the show, I saw a AI picture of, like an AI generated picture of Master Sergeant Thomas. And if my co-host can pull this one out quickly enough, we'll share it with you guys. But this is just like internet gold. That looks like a pretty cool guy to me. So definitely a cool guy.
Pretty cool.
All right.
It's my screensaver.
Last but not least, and with, no pressure whatsoever, Captain Steele, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
That's a lot of pressure. I feel like I should be AI right
She has
now.
the coolest name out of everybody.
That's fair.
regardless.
Hi, I'm Erica Steele, captain with the 152nd Airlift Wing out of Reno, Nevada. I'm a part of the SURF-P unit as a critical care nurse or emergency department nurse. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Love it. Could you tell us what the SURF-P is, ma'am?
Yes. So the SURF-P is a separate entity of the medical group, and that stands for Sea-Bernie Enhanced Force Protection. And what we do is we are on a team of about 30 to 40 people, respiratory therapists, medics, doctors, surgeons, nurses, and we are able to forward deploy in case of, say, a natural disaster like a fire or flooding.
Wow.
Love it.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Love it. So if you are new to this show, and this is the first time you've ever watched us, how this works is that we are going to have comments that are fielded from the field. And people that are watching this, you can please ask your comments. If you do and you want a question that's asked live on the air, please just put a Q next to it so that we can make sure and we know that that is a specific question that you want us to ask our special guests. We call them subject matter experts because this is what these folks have done. They are subject matter experts into this field, and this is why they're our guests. They're going to tell us some stories. We're going to ask a couple questions first. Sergeant Cerny and I are going to ask a couple questions, and then we'll, yes.
You don't know what the questions are because
Yes.
we don't show them with you.
Because we don't know the questions.
Well, she wrote the questions down. We know what the
so-
questions are. We just didn't share them with you guys. So now it's like,
No, they're pretty general questions. They're pretty general questions about what we're going to talk about today. And again, we just want to hear your stories and, and how it goes. You
And
want to hit it off?
to everybody out there joining us in the comments, like Senior said, put a Q in there if it's a question. That way we know how to cycle through them. Also, I see one. There's some love right there. Top of that list, Wes. Just hit add broadcast right there.
Whoop, whoop.
There we go. Whoop, whoop. Little love for Captain Steele out there. So already people in the comments showing love for our guests.
Love it.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. So if you guys notice in the middle bottom of our screen where Master Sergeant Thomas is, right in the bottom right-hand corner of his frame is someone's shoulder. That is our good friend, Wes. He's the one that's clicking around over there. So they're sharing the other side of the desk. If I don't know, there's something like small enough that I could throw and not get in trouble. Here, hold on. Yeah. Perfect. I got it. Okay. So he's like on that side of the table. This is normally where Mike sits. That's our producer. So Sergeant Thomas is actually joining us from inside the studio. And then Colonel Curtin is actually in the radio studio right down the hall. And actually, just for context, Captain, I know you're on the road. You said you're out doing the work
You know
on the
what?
road.
I'm actually back home now. So I'm in Montana. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So
Nice,
joining
yeah.
us from Montana. So we got a bunch of Texas and Montana. Awesome. Cool,
Very
cool.
cool.
All right. Here. You do one.
Oh, I do one.
Because I gotta
All
yeah.
right. He's got to get it. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to just ask it, and then anyone who wants to jump in, please feel free to jump in. So what inspired you to join the Air Force? And mostly, what has become involved in humanitarian missions? So what inspired you to join the Air Force, right? Why'd you do it? And then why did you kind of volunteer to do humanitarian missions?
Well, I guess I'll go.
All right, we got Cat.
No one likes an awkward silence.
All right.
All right. Well, I joined the military 20 years ago. I've been in the Guard 20 years last September. And I can honestly tell you, I joined the military because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So anybody else who can raise their hand and say that, don't leave me hanging here. Okay, good.
College
There we
dropout.
go.
College dropout. Had no
All
idea. what I was
right,
doing.
all right. So I started out enlisted, and I was in the Force Support Squadron in the services sector, and then commissioned in 2016 as a nurse. And if I can tell you that the ability of becoming a nurse and being able to kind of separate from real world duties in the emergency department and kind of separate that from being able to be a guardsman and fulfill that humanitarian work, working jointly with, Army, Marines, Navy, going to Tonga with our state partnership program, which is a whole nother conversation that I think we might have later. Having that ability to separate the critical aspect of emergency department nursing and then being able to be an officer in the Air Guard was amazing for me. So
It
that
sounds
would be the
pretty easy
biggest-
for you to be proud of wearing the uniform, huh, ma'am? It sounds pretty easy for
Yeah.
you. All right.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
All right.
So what other elements of most of the time when you think of military, you see a uniform, the first thing that comes to your mind is not typically what are they doing to help people, like, humanitarian efforts, right? So I know for a fact that we do a lot of stuff in crazy parts of the world when natural disasters happen, or when something happens that's not necessarily related to any kind of wartime efforts or anything like that, what kind of humanitarian efforts have you seen that most impacted you personally? And this one goes to anybody. You can take this one.
The biggest one
real
for me
short show
was
if we don't
working
have
with
somebody.
the most recent. You guys, what are you guys doing down there
I
in the
don't want to
corners?
talk too
Yeah,
much.
I mean, yeah.
Once I start talking, it's like soapbox.
The,
Keep
It's
talking.
all good.
the biggest one for me was the most recent, I guess. It was COVID.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, that was probably the biggest and longest quote unquote disaster that I've encountered for the United States. And the Guard really stepped up as far as going out into the community and providing immunizations and education. And again, I worked in the emergency department during that time, so having the ability to kind of educate people on the risks of COVID and when to come into the emergency room and the signs to look out for. So having that connection was really cool with the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, we COVID also affected me as well. A few years ago, we had a group of PJs down in Florida create a business at a reserve unit called RBT, and they basically established almost an acting nurse position for special operators with the medic background to go up to New York and work ICU and emergency room. And so I went up there for 30 days, 12-hour shifts back and forth. I ran the floor as a half paramedic and nurse with another guy who was actually a SEAL corpsman, retired. And we ran that floor for 30 days. And I'll tell you, as a medic, I've done a lot of stuff, a lot of good medicine, but the nurses, holy cow, I'm talking, they never sit down. They care about everyone equally. It was really a blessing to see, and it kind of made me think of, am I good at my job? Because this lady next to me is 10 times better than me at medicine. And so, it was definitely a time that I'm glad I was a part of to help out.
Wow. That's so. How was somebody like you with your training and your background? How do you get involved in going to supplement like that? How does that process work?
So they started the company, and we're pretty well known in the medical field. I'd say like a lot of nurses know what PJs and PJs know what, we're, people know each other, and, we have a pretty good reputation when it comes to medicine,
Sure.
trauma as well. And we're really motivated. We're in shape so we can last 12 hours and still keep going.
Yeah.
And so we got that opportunity to go out there, and it was a lot of PJs went out there and helped out.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Well, we've got two medical professionals, right? Because a lot of people, if you don't understand what a pararescueman does, pararescue, just as Sergeant Thomas was just talking about, is that pararescue definitely lean into the medical sort of part of it. And clearly nurses as well, right? So kind of taking that piece with Colonel Curtin has nothing to do with the medical field, right? Like his piece, his AFSC, his job has nothing to do with the medical field, but I am quite certain you've had to participate in some type of domestic operations in your career, sir. Can you share a time that you've had to provide any type of aid or, something to the citizens within domestic operations?
Sure. So I would just say Tactical Air Control Party, I would say one thing we do offer is our ability to command and control. So a lot of our radios and comm systems become, I would say, vital, especially when you overload the cell networks, or the cell networks are destroyed by some sort of natural disaster. And so I think you see, and the good thing about the Guard is that those citizens are right there in the communities where they exist, and states will rely on them to call them up to be able to provide those functions. And so I'll give a shout out to a lot of my, the PJs, especially in the Guard, and
Oh no. So we
The
have a
combat
hard
control-
line. Oh, there he is.
all
Oh, he's been perfect the whole time. The
I
second he
know.
talks,
Am I
the
still
second
here?
we get him to talk.
There we go. So
Sorry, sir.
we have a hardline internet connection in here. You are on Wi-Fi in there. And the buildings are very old and they don't really like to send Wi-Fi around them very well. So we might have to deal with some stuff going on in that studio. If you do get disconnected, because it's getting pretty grainy down there, it will say reconnect. You just hit reconnect and then rejoin. It'll bring you right back in. And we'll try to talk as much crap as we can right as soon as you leave, and then we'll be nice as soon as you come back. Promise.
This isn't recorded anywhere, so there's no proof of what we did.
It won't live on the internet forever. It'll be fine. So yeah, I think we lost you for about 10 seconds there at the end. If you can give us a little recall.
Oh, no, sure. I was just saying that we've, I think the special warfare folks have participated in anything from wildfires out in California. Hurricane Katrina was another huge one in 2000 and I think 4 or 5. So yeah, we're out there, and I think between our communications capabilities and then the medical side of it as well, I think all of that really plays well for us to be able to offer something in a crisis.
Very cool. So I've got a question, and anyone can take this one. Everything that we do is based on training. Most everything that we do is based on training. So I'm completely unfamiliar with any kind of humanitarian level service other than, the little bit of training that we had while I was at Combat Camera. I never had the chance to go actually provide video support and do that, but that was like kind of one of those things that I knew that we did, and I didn't know until I got there. But what kind of training does the Air Force provide that lets someone in uniform who, for all intents and purposes, is part of the Department of Defense, so the job is to potentially, keep our country safe and win wars anywhere in the world, right? What does the Air Force do to prepare people for humanitarian work, and, our service members?
I could probably talk on that one.
Go for it.
Get closer to the mic like this. So as a pararescueman, obviously we do stateside and overseas, but a lot of our training kind of coincides together. So for example, we do mountain rescue. We're doing water rescue in the helicopter. We're doing scuba diving. We are doing search and rescue with the scuba diving. We are doing swift water rescue. We can skydive in if we have to, depending on where it is. We are trained in every aspect of rescue capability that we can put on the table, and we're very efficient at it. And I think the way we train our guys, being hard on them and expecting a standard that is above the rest, ensures that when we do save you, that you are calm, or we are calm, and you're not seeing us freak out. And that's a state of mind that we need to uphold when we are rescuing someone. And but yeah, we are trained in every aspect of rescue.
Gotcha. What does anybody else have any examples of how they've seen the Air Force do humanitarian style training?
Well,
okay
I mean,
if
in the
not.
Guard. No, I mean, in the Guard, how we integrate what we do on the daily is kind of our training. That's one thing that we kind of, pride ourselves on, is that we are the community, and that's really helpful on how when we go in for these humanitarian missions, on how we connect with the community. It's because we are the community.
Right. So just how the question was put out there, how do you prepare for this, right? How do you train? We train, right? We're fit to fight. We train to wear the uniform that says U.S. Air Force. And then I have 2 guardsmen that are online with us. And yes, we hold that mission, but we also hold an additional mission of that domestic operation. Yes, we're doing humanitarian things, but we're also doing the domestic operation capability. So just as Colonel Curtin had talked about, hey, you know what? When there's a natural disaster, what is the most important thing? That we get communications up and ready. So a TACP airman, that's not their primary duty, right? Their primary duty is not to be setting up, comm situations for areas that have natural disasters, but there they are. They're out in the community. They're supporting that role. And then we have our critical care nurses and our SURF-P missions, and they're integrating with all of these other entities, right? Where the Air National Guard kind of does it a little bit different than how active duty would do in other humanitarian missions. Do my guardsmen have anything additional to kind of add to that piece?
Yes. So actually, that was a good. That was something really good to bring up. We how we train is we train a lot with the community. So we do exercises sometimes twice a year with local fire, metro, paramedics, because you're right, we don't have the capabilities to necessarily set up communications for a whole community. So working within that community is how we train to be ready to respond.
And we do a lot of joint training as well. So it's not even just how the captain was just talking about it. We'll also do how she was talking about Surf P mission, right? You're going to integrate with FEMA. You're going to integrate with also Red Cross. Even Colonel Kurt was talking about, he's going to be integrating with a lot of the Army folks, so you're going to have the Army National Guard that's going to be there as well. So just because our uniform says Air Force doesn't mean that we're not integrating with all of these other entities that are there for saving lives, essentially. That at the end of the day, that's what they're all designed to do, is to be saving lives. So that may not be necessarily our primary mission to be doing that, what we're doing in our uniform in our day-to-day life, right? Colonel Curtin isn't out there being like, I'm saving lives today, this is what I'm doing. But essentially him and his people, that's what TACPs are doing, depending on the mission.
I was going to say, there are some days that he is.
Some days he is. Some days he is.
It's like, I'm actually out here saving lives. Like, it'd
I'm
be
out
kind
here
of cool to say
saving
that.
lives.
I'm all like, I gotta go to work today and be on the internet.
I think Colonel Curtin needs an AI as well. Like, I'm saving lives.
Yeah, I would just
Hold on, where's
add.
my phone? Let me take some pictures.
I would add into that. You asked the question, what do we do to train for that mission? And so I just want to stress the point that I think, at least on the special warfare side, we don't train for that mission. It's just inherent in what we do, and so it translates really well into any kind of scenario.
I like that. That's cool.
That is really cool. It's the kind of thing, it's almost like a muscle memory. You didn't even know that you knew to do that, but when it happens, you're
Right.
doing it.
Right.
That's very cool.
Wow. I never even, okay. That's
Right?
that's a really good answer.
kind of cool
No,
to think
that's
of
a
it
really
that
good
way,
answer. I
right?
like that.
We're training all the time. We don't even realize that's happening.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
Yeah. Because inherently there doing what you do is, in fact, helping.
Yeah. Our skill
Yeah, and if you look
go
at
beyond
the
battlefield.
PJs, we could talk about PJs again. It's really easy, but if you go up to Alaska, they're performing mountain rescues or water rescues pretty much weekly, and so you can't replicate that kind of training in an active duty environment to go overseas. But they're getting it every single day, just doing that domestic response to certain things. So
Yeah.
Rescuing
yeah,
Jimmy
it
because
just
Jimmy thought it was a good idea to hike, Delaney, and he can't handle it, and so now he's got to get rescued.
There's some pretty insane missions out there, and Colonel Curtin's absolutely right. That they're dedicated to that job of stateside rescue over there in Alaska. There's no one else. So if someone's on the top of a mountain, or someone's in a river, or a plane crashed, or if there's a sick kid, and I'll tell you a quick story. I won't say any names because he's still active, but he is out in Alaska right now. A while ago, I say 2012, we were augmenting Alaska while they were overseas, and we were getting missions pretty often. Well, there was a sick boy and his mother way out in the middle of the wilderness, and it was during a blizzard. And so they call in, they're like, hey, my son's sick, and he doesn't look like he's going to make it. So they spun up, sent out 2 PJs, they skydived in, and it was so cold that when he exited, and this is like, you can't train for these type of things besides being able to stay calm in situations. That's one thing that we harp on in our selection courses. He jumps out. It's so windy, he loses his goggles, and his eyes crush shut, and just from being so cold. And he's trying everything to stabilize and wipe his eyes from just, being so cold, and his eyes being, I wouldn't say crusted. What's the word I'm looking for?
Just frosted
frozen,
over.
frozen shut.
Wow.
But staying calm and collected, he ends up opening, finally getting his eyes good enough to see. He lands. The other guy was the same situation, and it was so hard to see that he couldn't see power lines, landed in the power lines. Luckily, he was short. This guy's shorter than me, and didn't hit the ground, so it wasn't a connection. And they ended up hiking into that kid's house and stayed for 3 days and kept him alive and saved him. So that's a
Wow.
typical rescue that you would see in the middle of a winter. And if you've ever been over there in Alaska, those winters are harsh. Those winters are insane, and it's dark
Yeah.
for pretty much all of winter. So that's an example.
Wow, that's crazy.
That is crazy. Leading into that, like, how would you guys balance? This is going to be for my two officers on the end. How do you balance the emotional toll of witnessing, right, human suffering, with the need to remain focused and effective in your role?
It's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Super
Yeah,
easy question.
I can start. I mean, I think it was said earlier. I think your demeanor. So once you get past I would say the shock of seeing this on a regular basis. I'm not going to say day to day. I would just say that the calm is contagious, and so that carries. So your calm does carry over to the individuals that you see. But I think what you start to recognize is that a lot of the stuff that you see, especially I would say from a deployed environment, it's just the way they deal with that stuff on a day-to-day basis. And so anything you can do to kind of help to make their lives a little bit easier while we were over there, I felt like that always went a long way. And so you just kind of, I don't know, you search for good reasons to try to get through. But I don't think you internalize any of it. If you do, it's really short-minded, or it's in moments of self-reflection. I don't think you're doing it in the moment. It's kind of like if anyone ever played baseball, if you're, as an infielder, the ball comes to you, everything kind of goes black while you're fielding a ball. The same thing happens when you're in those situations. You're just hyper focused and very vigilant.
Absolutely. We could go off some quotes too. You guys know from last time I like to say quotes, but
I mean, bring them on. I love quotes.
good luck is when preparation meets opportunity. That's one thing that the military has in their back pocket, is our ability to be prepared for that opportunity. And then, you're never going to rise to the occasion. You will always fall back to your training. And, you talk about people, you're not just going to miraculously do open heart surgery in the back of a helicopter and you've never done it. It's just, that's not the way it goes. That's not how it is. I used to video cam some of my missions, and you could see firsthand when we look back of some of the movements I was doing that I don't remember doing. It was just second nature because we've done it so many times. So yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
All
Kevin?
right.
I mean, they hit it right on the nose. I'll do my quote, adapt and overcome. I guess that's what I've used for the past 20 years in my military career. But compartmentalizing is definitely big in that kind of setting, because you are who these people are, looking at for help and for confidence. So the self-reflection part is very in tune with what I do. You go home and then you self-reflect on what you do.
It's crazy, right? Like, so the Colonel, I wrote it down when he said it. Your calm is contagious. I love that line.
like
Your
that.
calm is contagious. Like, what a great sort of mindset, no matter where you are, right? Like, not even a humanitarian mission or someone suffering, but your calm is contagious.
I'm writing that one down.
Yeah, I literally wrote it down. It is fantastic.
It works with
but
your kids. I tell my wife that all the
there's-
time. So
your calm is contagious. But it's
'cause she's
really
like,
so.
That is also
You know she's going to see
contagious.
this. She's going to see this, sir.
Yeah.
But like, take a step back for one second, right? Like, your little baby airmans, right? Like, or even your 17, 18, 19-year-old self, and you're thinking about, wow, you're on this show and you're talking about your calm is contagious. You're talking about these mission sets and being there for people, and you're essentially sometimes showing up to these people's worst days of their lives, and you are the person that they are looking to. Was there ever a moment in your brains that you ever thought that was going to be you? Or has it even sunk into your brains, right, that you guys are now those people, right? Like, have you like kind of step back and be like, oh, dang, like, I'm that person for somebody now. I've been that person. I've done that in somebody's life. I am that calm to someone, and I not just save their lives, but also kind of save their sanities. Has that sunk into you guys yet? Was there a moment that it sunk into you?
Imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
That statement though is really profound, actually, because it has sunk in, but it doesn't really resonate with me, because it just is second nature. So when I hear that, it's profound because, I can be confident to say that I am someone that you can look to, and the calm is contagious in that situation. Maybe not in others, like your wife, Colonel, but in, in my professional life, yeah.
But in the ER, yeah, I mean, in the ER, that you're the person that they wanna look to and look for,
Yeah.
right? And then like I got my two gentlemen on the end that are in the battlefield, those are the guys that you want charging the hill. You want to leave behind them, be behind them, and there they are.
Yeah.
Like
that's big stuff. There's a lot of quotes coming out of this.
But
one.
I mean, it's crazy though, right? Like, so I used to do these briefings, right? And I would talk about as an in-service recruiter, I would talk about like when people were separating, right? And I would say, hey, listen, you're separating for whatever reasons, you want to be close to home, you want to pursue your civilian careers, you want to do whatever it is that you're doing. But at the end of the day, like people are leaving and they're thinking that what they've done isn't important, right? Like, is that imposter syndrome? Because let's be serious, if I can do it, right? We're pretty humble as human beings. If I can do it, it clearly can't be all that special, right? It can't really be that important because if I can do it, like who am I? I'm nobody. So if I can do it, it's too easy. But then I would like break down the numbers and was like, do you guys even understand how little airmen there are in this world, right? Like there are 230 million Americans and we only have 20 million, according to the VA, like 20 million veterans, like actually 18 million veterans and like 2 million service members. Yeah. And then you break that down to like what is Air Force. I'm not telling anything that you can't Google, right? So like that there's a little over 500 airmen that are currently wearing this uniform, 500,000 airmen. Like that's a crazy number, guys. Like think about that for 1 second. There are a little over 500 airmen, guard, active duty, and reserve that are wearing this. So if you take that and you divide it into 320 million Americans, that's like 0.00016% that are wearing this uniform that say United States Air Force.
Not a mathematical number.
Yeah. Right? Well, no, it's
It's
like,
a
yeah,
very
it's
small
like,
percentage.
yeah, it's like, it's not even a percentage. So,
for sure.
Right? Like, we are, right? So I have three, literally, like whether they're going to own it or not, I have 3 American heroes that are sitting in front of us that do these incredible things. And we want to hear your stories. We want you to shake it off and we want to hear your stories. We want to get into it and we want to hear what you guys have done. And like, we want you to share it with us. And we want you to share it with the public, because we want people to know if you can do it, they can do it too.
Yeah, I'll talk on that piece. So we you get trained, the parameters of your job, and you just go out there and do the job. I think everyone can relate here.
Yep.
You've been trained, and you just go out and hack the mission. I like to tell the story because it kind of paints a picture of what I was doing, and I never knew the back end of the story. You just do stuff, and you just don't know how things turn out. And as a PJ, you go out on a mission, you save someone that can be a Marine, an Army guy, a SEAL, whatever it may be, and then that's the last you hear of it. You drop them off at the hospital, and then you never see him again. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Afghanistan. We were coming back from a mission. We actually got fragoed. So for the civilian population out there, frago means that you're on a mission and then you get another mission during the mission. And so we get this 9-line, and basically a 9-line is saying, hey, how many people, how many patients, what kind of equipment do we need, and things like that. And so it was a pretty benign 9-line, like, we had a person who got shot in the helmet, just go pick him up. So we come in, and as PJs, as the call sign Pedro, we were known to, hey, bullets are flying, and the place is hot, like we're going in there no matter what. Well, this one, we didn't know it was hot. We actually didn't think it was hot at all. So we are the trail bird, which is the med-heavy bird. We fly in, and right when we land, we start taking shots. At that point, you have to make a decision. Hey, am I going to keep this helicopter on the ground because it's just a big object to shoot at? Or are we going to tell the pilot, hey, we're going to just stay on the ground because either way, you're going to have to come back and pick us up. Now you're pretty much like, that's twice now. So we decide, hey, we call out shooter, and we say, hey, stay on the ground. We run through this cornfield. It is dusty, eyes, everything's caked up, and we're running, and we meet these group of Marines. On this litter, I meet eyes with a Marine, and we grab the litter and we start heading back towards the helicopter, running as fast as we can. And that's one great thing about pararescue and everyone else in the military is our sense of urgency is at the same level. Like if we need to get something done, we're gonna get it done, and we got to do what we have to do. So we're running back. I look down at the patient. He's got this wrap around his head, and he's in the decorticate positioning. As a nurse, you know exactly what I'm talking about. His hands are in. I already know in my head as a medic that he's going to have brain damage. So our job is to get this person back to their home. We get in the helicopter, we close the door, and my job on that patient was the head. My other PJ on the bird, his job was to take care of the legs. There was nothing wrong with his legs. And then we have our other guy who's up on the radio, up and out. So I'm working on this patient. I'm looking at him. He's got this bandage. It vibrates off, pops off. He had been shot in his eye and blew out his ear. And he's still alive. He's still fighting. And my job is to get this guy to the hospital the best condition I can to save his life. So I'm trying to get oxygen. I try to do a head tilt. He has trismus, which is locked jaw. He's foaming out of his nostrils, out the corner of his mouth. I cannot get an airway. So I throw an MPA, which is basically like a tube that goes down his nostril. It starts bubbling. There's nothing there. My other PJ had hooked up the monitor, got him 100% O2. I try to get his jaw open. I look at my buddy. I'm like, I can't do it. We're going to crike him. So a crike basically is you're going to cut his throat here open, and you're going to put a tube down his throat to get air into his lungs. So I jump onto the litter. I put my knees over this guy. He's roughly 20 years old. He's a Marine, and you guys can relate. You have friends of that age. That's one thing that's really hard. And so I crike him. Like I said before, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You always fall back to your training. Not even a few minutes later, we hit the ground. The ambulance comes, and we do a handover, and boom, he's out. And so I'm telling this exact story as an NDOC instructor after I have already deployed and came back to AETC, and I'm instructing. And the guy in the back of the classroom who was a prior service Marine looks at me, and he stops me in the middle of the story and says, "You were in Afghanistan in 2013, Helmand Valley, off a bastion," and he knew every detail. And he looked at me dead in my eyes, and he says, "I was the guy who was carrying the litter, and that was my best friend on the litter."
Damn.
And so
Wow.
our actions, our calmness, our ability to save that person made him want to be a PJ. And I asked him, I literally stopped what I was doing, stopped acting like a hard instructor, went right up to him, hugged him, almost cried in front of everyone. And he said that we had brought that guy back to Germany, and Germany back to the States, and his family took him off life support 3 months later in front of everyone, extended and immediate family. So that tells you that what you're doing, you might not know. But sometimes you figure it out, or you find out in a sense like that. So,
Wow.
yeah, I think that's a worthy story to tell. And
Yes.
again, that's what we do.
Wow.
For
That's
those of you who
incredible.
are not in the medical community, criking someone is last resort. So
Yeah.
good on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like shaking
Put
the
that to
stomach.
death.
So I had you on full screen because I
Yeah.
wanted to be, getting the story, but I also wanted to like bring it back to this one and have all of us just like,
Wow.
just
So that was the look that you're talking about.
no, I'm
the
looking
look.
at the
That's the
camera
look.
now because
It's
I'm like, geez, no, that's. If you got more stories like that,
Yeah, this is what we told him.
it's like Finding Nemo, and it's like, oh, story time. They all just huddle together. I'm like, yeah,
Ooh, I'll do
I'll sit here and
this.
listen to Sergeant. Yeah, it's like I'll sit here and listen to Sergeant Thomas's stories. That's incredible. Wow. But yeah, it's 100%. It's a little different than the way that I know the saying, but you fall back on your lowest level of training. And that goes to anything where you have to rely on your physiological response, what your body does in response to something, typically high stress, needs to be trained that way. And that's, man, it's crazy. I'm not even, so it's weird because since he's on the other side of the desk, I'm not looking at the camera like I'm talking to everybody out
Like
there. I'm
looking
actually
at
looking
him,
at,
yeah.
we're like
Yeah.
looking at
Locking
each
eyes
other
right now.
across this thing because I'm like, okay. All right. I think it's about time to get into the
I
back
think
and
so,
forth
too.
section of
Let's hit it.
of the show. So this is the part where we actually field questions from you guys. We have been watching all of them, and we're selecting really great questions that we've got. We've got some good stuff in the comments. Are you
That's a great
circling?
one.
Are you circling that one for me?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Can you? Yeah, throw it up there.
Yeah.
Can you explain how some other career fields play roles in these missions? Yes. Right after, if you got a question, put a Q in front of it. We're going to start answering those questions right now.
We're still going to answer. It's a great
And our
question.
guests are
Yeah.
going to help us out. So
Yes.
who
Can you
wants
keep it
to
up? Will you keep it up again?
Yeah, who wants to take that one? How other career fields play roles.
Yeah.
That's a big, wide question.
Let's do. We'll hit up Colonel Curtin and we'll see, right? Because I want to hear like what other career fields he's seen in his career that have supported some of his missions, and then I also want to hear the captain too. I want to hear on both those ends.
Yeah, give us some examples of what other career fields co-op to
Yes.
make missions like that happen.
So I know this sounds cliche. This sounds cliched, but I think every single career field enables these types of missions because everyone does something that helps enable to move the warfighter forward. So I hate to say that, but that's really what it comes down to. So it's from the pilots flying the C-130s to the maintainers keeping the C-130s flying to the FSS folks making sure and the finance folks making sure we're getting paid because that's also another stressor. So I would just say that everybody participates in some way or another. And then especially on, just for my career field, I would say outside the support, I would say the people that take care of our radios specifically,
Yeah,
they do
for
they do a great job making sure that all those things are up and running so that we can use them when we need them.
That's literally
sure.
your livelihood of your
Yeah.
career.
Communication's incredibly important. You lose communication, it's a bad day. Ma'am, Captain, what are some of the ones that you've seen impact? So other career fields that have impacted mission success when it comes to kind of working together like that.
Yeah. Well, some of the biggest ones that I've seen, dental. So if you're a dental hygienist, they do a lot of humanitarian work stateside and internationally because dentistry internationally is just not as big as it is in the United States. I got to give my shout out to my husband, who's Red Horse, and he's an electrician. So electrical, plumbers, structures, they are constantly on humanitarian missions, building schools, runways, hospitals, you name it, they're building it. So those are some of the other big career fields that I see in as far as humanitarian work goes.
Which is true. Like, so even myself, right? Like I've done multiple humanitarian missions as security forces, right? So just as the captain was saying, I've done support missions and provided security for CE and Red Horse, where we've done we do a state partnership mission. And I know the captain kind of briefed that just for a quick second, but each state and territory has a state partnership mission in a country that we do a coalition with. And so that state and those members will go to that state. We do some training together and vice versa, and then that country will also come up to our state as well and do a shared mission. I came from the state of New Hampshire, and our country was El Salvador, and I had gone down to El Salvador multiple times, and we had Red Horse that was building Red Horse, and we had the Army Civil Engineer Corps that were building a road in between a hospital and between a school, so a connecting road between there. But lo and behold, what was that territory? It was MS-13 territory that was directly through that jungle. So we needed to provide security and operational security for our people, right, to stay safe, for our civil engineers to stay safe, and then also for them to come back to a smaller base and to provide security for them too. So it was very cool. So there are multiple, just as the colonel had said, it sounds cliche, but everyone has a little part. And if you are willing to raise your hand and say, hey, I want to volunteer for these humanitarian missions, I definitely want to do this skill set, we'll always say yes. Come on and come do this. Like, people don't understand how huge that mission set is in the Air Force.
And one big one that I always give kudos to is just maintenance.
Yes,
One
sir.
thing that we have to do is get helicopters out there. We're getting C-130s, and that stuff breaks. I mean, if you look at a helicopter, it's old. So
Sometimes
these guys are out there 12 plus hours in the middle of the night making
in
sure that
the environment, not even in the middle of the night, in the cold, in the wet, in the hot. I mean, like, and this has come from security forces, right? Maintenance and security forces are supposed to be like never symbiotic, but man, you got a lot of respect for what maintenance crews do out there. It is no joke, and the mission's useless without them. It doesn't even exist.
Somebody explain to me what Red Horse is, please.
Oh yeah, so Red Horse. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna let the captain do it since you should give
Oh
a shout out to
no,
her
I don't
husband.
know. Because if my husband watches this, then he'll be like, "That is not what we do."
That is not what we do. That's all right. No one knows what I do either. I'd make it up.
No, so they're part of civil engineering, except they're not base CE. So when you think of base CE, they're fixing stuff around the base. But these guys are a unique bunch, and they deploy and do humanitarian missions, basically to build bare bases. That's how I like to explain it to people who don't know the military. So think of nothing there. Red Horse is going in and they're putting something there.
Yep.
Yeah, and
So-
what is one of the first things that Red Horse is building? Like what's like one of the most important things when they land?
A runway.
It's a runway.
Yeah.
It's communications. Communications.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that is the first thing. Combat comm is the first thing that is happening is communications.
Yep.
You cannot forget base security, forget everything else. Communications is the priority always.
And then it's just a place to sleep.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
if you're not getting sleep, you're not going to perform well. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's quick.
So Red Horse
Very
is
good at what
like
they do.
super high speed construction dudes.
Yes.
Like they can build
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
out of anything, anywhere in the world. So
Yeah.
not just a bunch of red horses, just in case you
No,
were
not
wondering.
that. Yeah.
So we got some weird names for all kinds of stuff. That's
Yeah.
one of them. So, all right, cool. Let's do another question.
Okay. What do you
You
got?
take this one.
What are some of the most popular career fields that young people have that support humanitarian missions? It's really great. No.
I think probably PJ TAC P, CCT are going to be some of the top ones, right?
Yeah, our special warfare,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
medical career fields.
No. Yes.
Yep.
Well, it looks
Yes.
like Sergeant Thomas is looking at the colonel. So
Yeah. Yeah, he's like looking at the
you
colonel.
just turned
like, in
your
the
head
thing,
off
like,
to the side, looked
"Colonel,
right at
sir?"
him.
Do you have anything to recruiters, right? Recruiters. We can't do it without
What
recruiters.
was the
ADARs.
question? It says that young people have
Young people.
that support, and what, I wonder what they mean by that.
What are some of the most popular career fields that young people have that support humanitarian missions?
I think maybe it's younger airmen. Maybe that's what they're thinking
that's what
because
they're
they're thinking like, what can the younger folks that don't have years and years of experience in training? How can they support?
And if we're off
The
base, just
missions.
throw another comment out there and we'll
Yeah.
keep an eye on it.
I would say in medical, medics have a very unique opportunity to do a lot of
Yeah,
humanitarian.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
And we need our nurses for sure.
Young security forces, young airmen that are security forces do a lot of humanitarian missions. I mean, the first humanitarian mission I did, I was A1C. So, out in Bosnia. I'm aging myself.
Yeah, and I would add load masters are probably another popular one outside of the
Yes,
normal
sir.
air crew, but give it to the enlisted folks in the back because they do most of the work.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's valid. There's like elements of a lot of different career fields that put a ton into the humanitarian, whether you're directly there handing that aid over or whether you're supporting that person. I mean, it takes all of us just the same way as we do to put, munitions anywhere in the world. To be able to put that humanitarian aid anywhere in the world takes the same people. And that it's funny because we're starting to answer some of those questions that I had earlier in the show about, what kind of extra training do we get? It's like, it's kind of consistent. The
Yeah.
training is the same. Your job is to do your job, right? And that can be to defend the country, or that could be to help people that need help. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, but whether you're loading up a Humvee in a C-17 or you're loading up a 10K pallet of water to get dropped off to somewhere that needs water, it's the same thing, right? So you've just it depends on what you're hauling that day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean,
and
and
the young-
sometimes even when you're doing these missions, even if it's not your job, I mean, you know how many times I filled sandbags? I have filled so many sandbags, I lost count.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sitting here, hold my rifle. I got to fill up this sandbag, you know? So it doesn't really matter. Like, when you got to work, everybody's going to roll up their sleeves and they're going to get to work.
Yeah. Cool.
Sorry, Sergeant Thomas, I cut you off.
No, I was just saying that a lot of jobs are very involved in the actual mission. And on the chat said intel and aircrew, 100%.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, we need
Services.
intel.
Let's not forget
Services.
services.
Oh,
Throwing out every
man.
services.
Ooh,
I mean, every single
services.
aspect.
I'll tell you what. I tell everyone, I'm like, listen, airmen we can put up with a lot of things. Human beings can put up with a lot of things. If you mess with somebody's money, right? You mess with someone's money because they can't focus on the job because they're worrying about how they're going to pay their bills, and then you're going to mess with somebody's
Or
food.
their food, yeah.
Forget it. Forget it. I'm a little fat Italian lady. You mess with my food, we done. We fighting. We fighting to the end. I am not having you.
We know who runs finances.
Yes.
A1Cs,
Yes,
Right, yeah.
A1C.
Young
It's not
bucks.
even the E4 mafia. It's the A1Cs run finance.
E4.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah, they are the greatest. I love you, finance. Shout out. Keep paying me.
Keep paying me.
Hey,
I love you, finance.
hey,
Yep.
I do want to add, I think a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, there's a lot of behind the scenes. So when you see video
Yeah.
footage of stuff, you're seeing the frontline people, but like even taking a pallet that gets pushed off or unloaded from an aircraft, somebody's loading that pallet.
Yep.
Somebody's packing the parachute for that pallet. So there's a lot of stuff that we could just name pretty much. It just goes back to my comment. Everybody plays a part.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
don't want to leave anyone out.
You could think about some pretty crazy minutia, and
Yeah.
there's most likely an airman somewhere that's their job.
Yep.
You know, all the way down to the air pressure and the tires on the plane. You know,
To
anything.
POL
The-
fuels,
right.
right? To making sure that the number is correct, right? That
Yep.
there's no static in the bladders, that for those refueling planes. Like there's exactly what the colonel said. There's a million moving pieces that
Yeah.
we don't even think about, right? Of like how we got to this point, and it's the frontline folks, that are taking the credit for it, right? Like that are the
Well, that's the
shining
face.
stars.
Yeah,
They're the
that's
face.
the
They're the
face
shining
for it,
stars
sure.
of it.
All right, Wes. I saw you trying to put that comment up like
let's
4
hear it.
times. Let's do it. What are some of the traits that there are for people who are good in humanitarian activities in the Air Force? So traits.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Go for
One
it.
thing I love about the Air Force, military in general, but Air Force is really big on professional development. So let's
Yep.
say you joined it, let's say 17 years old. By 19, 20 years old, you're a senior airman, which is our like you're starting to get into leadership. We send you to a school and we're teaching you how to communicate, how to be a good follower, a good leader. And these things matter when you're dealing with civilians and just different entities out there while doing humanitarian missions. You could be 20 years old, intel guy, briefing a 3-star on what's happening right now. And you got to be squared away. And we teach you to be squared away. So if right now you're 16, 17 years old, 18, 19, whatever age, and you don't have those traits, we can build those traits. You have the capabilities, and we will get you there.
Yeah.
That's a promise.
Yeah,
like
we're going to
that.
teach you.
I like that. We can build you there. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do another one.
Does the Air National Guard ever assist in riot control?
Specific.
That's very specific.
I feel like I should answer this one.
Yeah,
so
let's hear it,
I will
sir.
say that I will say that one of the unique abilities for the Guard, for the National Guard, is they have the ability to do riot control and police activities where duty cannot do that without presidential authority. So they allow that to happen with the state. So the answer is yes, but it's always going to be in some sort of a limited function. Just because when you start putting people in military uniforms on the street, it gives an appearance. So usually we'll be there. We'll try to help and assist, but it's not going to be your automatic go-to.
But still a yes. That's a solid answer.
So
Still a yes.
So one cool thing that my unit does is because of the October 1 shooting in Las Vegas, we really kind of ramped up the security for mass casualty incidents during, let's say, Super Bowl, Las Vegas, New Year's in Las Vegas, and then most recently Formula One. So the entire National Guard for the state of Nevada, which was activated by the state, actually went into Las Vegas and provided, enhanced security and worked with local response agencies. We had medical tents set up at the hospitals for potential mass casualty incidents. We had security augmentees who were walking around with local law enforcement agency to try just to be a presence in Las Vegas to not eliminate, but maybe deter those from doing bad things.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and something you don't really think about. Like, there's a ton of support that comes from that element, and that most people don't even realize. Like, you don't even think about it. Then you're like, oh, that makes sense. Why we would be there? We're good at it. We can help.
All right. I mean, we call it like, so, right, people can call it riot control, and that kind of has like a little bit of a negative connotation to it. But, you know, just as the captain was explaining, they're there to support and to help, right? That it isn't just necessarily that. And so as the colonel was also talking about how, you know, we want to limit the appearance of military uniformed personnel, you know, within the streets, that also really rides into, right? I go into history lessons, right? Rides into like our Second Amendment, right? And the Second Amendment that we will have a fully formed militia, a fully armed militia, right? And so essentially, the Army and the Air National Guard we are born within the Second Amendment, right? And so that's I'm throwing out Latin today too, baby. The Posse Comitatus Act, right? So the Posse Comitatus Act, right, enacts us so that we are protecting, right? So that the American citizens have that protection. And that's what the Army and the Air National Guard does. We provide that protection so that the federal government can never get too big and never take over our American citizens. And so we are just fortunate enough as Air National Guard members that we also get to provide that domestic operation, and we get to provide that humanitarian piece to American citizens within American soil, where active duty folks cannot do that because it is against the Posse Comitatus Act. You can't have uniformed service members in a Title X status coming into the state's confines, right? So we keep that protected for a very specific reasons, and that's what makes the United States so dynamic in that piece, that we do have that separation of the federal and the states. So there was my civics lessons for you all. Oh, mic drop. And if you aren't following me on my Instagram page, I'm actually teaching civics courses about the Air National Guard. So you should probably follow me on my Instagram page and find more civics lessons about the Air National Guard and how we've become.
We need to have like a little thing for your email so people can reach out to you. Just like throw it up.
I
on the
tried to
screen.
keep it simple, so thanks for making that way more complex.
Yeah, I make it, Girdle, you know I make everything complex. Everyone in this panel knows I make everything complex.
But fun, though.
It's something, sir. It's something.
There you go. All right, let's do another one. What kind of careers in the Air Force allow you to be deployed, and how does the process work? Just about all of them.
Everybody.
All of them.
Yep.
Are there any that don't?
Recruiters. That's pretty much it. I think
There you go.
recruiters, I think 8 recruiters, but you can't come into the Air Force, the Air National Guard, without holding a specialty in something else. So recruiting is a special duty.
And you can't just come in to the Air Force to be a recruiter.
No, you can't.
You get selected from your job, whatever your job that you
Yes.
come in for. You get selected from that if you're good enough to go become a recruiter. And they
Yes.
teach you, and they tend to send you to basically recruiter school, and there's like a whole process to it. But yeah.
I think
So,
recruiters might be
recruiters-
the only ones that are
I
non-deployable.
think you're right. How's the process work? It depends on what your job is. It depends on this thing called a tempo. Basically, how fast or how often you deploy is going to depend on whether or not your specific job is required in that part of the world for whatever those efforts are. I don't know. I mean, there are career fields that deploy a lot more than others. Security forces, special warfare, PJs, TACP, CCTs, those guys. There's a lot more opportunity for deployments in some of those. And then ones that you're not going to deploy as much, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking
Finance will be onesie-twosies,
Yeah.
but there still will. JAGs, onesie-twosies, but
because all that
still
stuff
going
still
to.
needs, we've talked a lot about, it's interesting because I'm seeing the words humanitarian and then support a lot in this show so far. So there's a lot of that kind of symbiosis between, the two sides of what we do. If you can imagine everything that we do in the United States, as military to make our mission work, if that mission has to go overseas, the entire support network has to go with it, right? So like I made the joke of, and not so much a joke, it's serious, even though it seems trivial, the person who's responsible for making sure that the right air pressure is in the tires of the airplane, he has to go if that airplane goes over there. He has to go support. The guy whose job it is to make sure that the fuel is available and in the airplane has to go. And then those guys got to get paid, and they got to get fed, and they have to have somewhere to live. Yep. All of the support elements will have to go with that team in order to make sure that that airman is paid, fed, and has somewhere to live. So it really just depends on kind of what your job is. what's required of you to get the mission done, and how you play a support role in doing what we do. So pretty much you have an opportunity to deploy. There's not a guarantee that you will. So I know some people that have gone an entire career without deploying once. And then I know guys that have deployed 10 times, in as many or less years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who we're fighting as well, and also like, are we at war? Are we at peace?
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on timing and location, geographically, and all that.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, we make sure we're being clear on terms. Being stationed overseas is different than deploying, and so
Very good point. Very good point. So you can get stationed somewhere else in the world, and there are. My brain says 144. How many bases do we have? There's a lot. We've got a lot of bases all over the world. Tons in Europe. Tons in the Pacific. And you can get stationed in those places. And most of those places, you can take your family with you. It's basically just doing the same job, just that support element here, just in a different country. It's kind of a wild experience. There's accompanied deployments where accompanied, what they call PCSs, or a move, where your family will go with you. And then there's unaccompanied, where your family doesn't go with you, but it's still considered not a deployment. It's considered a move. And then there's deployments where you would go for whatever your term is. What are they, typically 6 months, I think, is the average for Air Force.
Be 3 to 12.
Yeah, it could be 3 to 12. Yeah. And then obviously your family doesn't go with you, but you're much more focused on the job when you're deployed, because that's your whole existence, is to make sure that gets done.
I will say that the Air Force, in my opinion, has a pretty good deployment.
Yeah, comparatively.
For example, we were in Afghanistan. I think we were doing a 90-day deployment, and there was a Marine there that was there for 15 months. When we got there, we met him in the gym. He left for a week. By the time we left, he was back for another 15 months.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the deployment tempo for like Army and Marines is significantly more aggressive.
Let's always hear it. What's the worst and the best? The worst and the best deployments around the room. What do you got?
Ooh.
Worst and best.
Colonel, what do you think?
What are you asking? Like time?
What do you got? What's the either or? Like the worst spot that you did.
Personal opinion.
Your personal opinion. The worst and the best. Yours.
I mean, best spot. My first deployment was to Al Udeid, Qatar. So
That's a pretty good one.
hello.
indeed.
That's a good
I
one.
went to the D. I went to the deed when we were the second group that showed up. So the deed wasn't the deed when I first went there. The deed was literally like a fob. It was nothing. There was nothing.
Oh,
there.
so you didn't have a pool.
No, there was no pool. There was no pool.
The deed,
Yeah.
or Al Udeid, is in Qatar, and that is now
It's like Shangri-La.
It's an incredibly established base, and while it is a deployment now, it is probably one of the more chill deployments.
I heard there's like a
because
Baskin Robbins there.
There is.
Yeah,
There's a Baskin Robbins
Yep.
at a deployed location. I think there's 2 swimming pools.
Yeah.
There's a mall.
Yeah.
There's a coffee shop. Like,
Dang.
It's-
Green beans.
Green bean, yep.
Green beans,
It's pretty crazy. Like, as far as
I mean,
deployments
that's
go,
where people go for their
this one's
R&R,
pretty chill.
right?
It's good for their art. Yeah, it's
Right.
R&R. Yeah.
like, there are guys coming off of the nastier deployments, and something in Afghanistan or Iraq or something, where it's just a lot rougher, and they look at any time spent in Al Udeid as R&R. So that's your rest and recovery time. That's when you can actually just let loose and just kind of relax a little bit, because it's not quite as crazy.
That's good.
So
That's good.
yeah.
What do you guys got? What's the worst and the best?
I
What would you rate?
I would say, to me, Afghanistan. I went to Afghanistan and Bastion a couple times. I like that one more because I was busier. I was saving more lives. I was doing the job.
Yep.
Africa, we got a couple missions, but it was 6 months and we only did 1 week of missions. So you're kind of sitting there. You can work on other stuff. You go play soccer. There's a Subway. There's a movie theater. There's a pool there.
Yeah.
But depending
Sit
on
around
your
and do
personality and
nothing.
what you want, like, that to me I was like, man, I can't wait to get out of here and go back to my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was like, it was over. and
There
over, so.
are a lot of deployments where, so it's interesting because when you think deployed, most of the time we're not living in a tent, sleeping on the ground. But when you deploy, a lot of times you push forward to go do missions that will require you to sleep on the ground or in a tent for periods of time. And then you go back to what you would consider like your home base or wherever you're stationed out of for that. And that home base would be your deployment base. So like if you're in Afghanistan, you could be on a FOB or a forward operating base, which if you've seen in the movies is pretty much like that. Bunch of Connex boxes, like semi-trailer boxes, tents everywhere, Humvees driving around all over the place, probably a flight line with some aircraft moving around. And it's that kind of established environment. And that, for example, is one of the things that Red Horse builds. They'll show up and build a base like that out of boxes and tents. But then if you can imagine, like if you've got a mission to go do somewhere that's not inside that, what they would call inside the wire, right? Go outside the wire. Then, yeah, the conditions go down. You don't have a tent. You don't have a hardened shelter to stay in at night. And if you end up going on multi-day missions out like that, yeah, it can get a little grody. So, FOBs are significantly lower grade as far as quality of life and amenities as a place like Al Udeid. Al Udeid.
Shangri-La?
Shangri-La. So, yeah. But anyway, I digress.
You got your rest. Okay.
All right, let's do another one.
All right. What do we got for questions?
Unless somebody really wants to share best and worst, but pop in later with them. I would like to gain some insight. I hold an undergraduate training in aerospace engineering, but I hope to become very much involved in the international humanitarian aid, disaster relief, rescue operations space. Ultimately, I, one more time, hope to specialize as an international rescue aerorobotic human engineer. What sort of opportunities are available that I can prospect either in the Air Force or in partnering organizations, programs, or initiatives? You, sir, sound like a busy individual with some goals, and we like that. So there is no reason to look elsewhere in the industry. The Air Force wants you. Talk to a recruiter. But specifically with those things, it depends on whether or not you're wanting something in the vein of like medical, because it sounds like that might be.
I have no idea what I just did.
I shot near my head. It was like the cap to your pen just flew off.
Flew off. Sorry about that.
It sounds like you want to help people. So a medical field, and honestly, if you want to be part of the action a little bit more, Sergeant Thomas is your guy because, I mean, that's action that's also medical. So it sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like you might be a perfect fit for something like a PJ course or something like that. What do you think, Sergeant Thomas?
I mean, that sounds good. We actually, one of our guys I graduated with, he was a civil engineer. He worked it for a while. He said, I don't want to do this anymore. Became a PJ.
That's a jump.
Worked as a PJ, a couple deployments, and now he's an anesthesiologist over at BAMC.
Wow.
So if that whole list of stuff that you said, do it all.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Cool thing about the Air Force is you can be good at one thing and get to do a lot more than just one thing. So you can get trained to do a ton of different stuff. All right, let's do another one.
Does weight matter if I want to join? Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes, we do have height and weight standards.
Let's give a quick breakdown.
I don't know them off the top of my head, but you can find them on airforce.com.
So you couldn't tell me the exact left and right limits of someone who's 5'6"?
You could be 5'6",
5'6",
but if you have a six-pack, I mean, you weigh 185 pounds. Don't think that you're overweight.
Yeah, because you
They're
have to
gonna do a
you
body
have to,
check.
yeah.
They're going to see
You
your
have to
body
go
fat.
to be under 30% BMI.
Yep. So the recruiter will be able to help you out. There is a guide based on your height and also your gender that will tell us where you need to fall in order to be low risk or at least moderate, something that we can accept. But the cool thing is go talk to a recruiter now because they'll be able to help you and they can point you in the right direction. And they also have a bunch of resources which are free and they can help you get to that weight. Even if you don't end up joining, you can take advantage of that situation. So as long as it's not a medical thing and you are not grossly obese or incredibly underweight, it's not very difficult. I'll tell you, when I joined, I think I had to lose like 12 pounds to be inside where my recruiter thought was good. And I found out later that I was already in the left and right limits, so I technically qualified, but he wanted his numbers to look really good. So he was like, you need to be 188. And I was like, what? I haven't weighed 188 since I was like 17, So it's just like, but I'm 6'2". So I was like, well, I had to lose a little bit of weight. But
What is it, like the Vaseline with the saran wrap and don't drink water for 24 hours?
It was. I'll tell you, it was probably not blessed by doctors. What I did to lose that 12 pounds quickly.
Like, what does that sound? It's just you walking.
What is that sound? He's like living in a trash bag.
Yeah, like
You make the
trying to
joke
sweat
like
it
I
off.
didn't actually do that.
I believe that you
I wore a
did.
sweatsuit for like an entire weekend in the summer in Kansas City. It was so hot and humid.
That is not recommended
No,
from
it's not safe
Air
either.
Force recruiting. Just
No,
so we
it's
put
not.
that out
No.
there. We are not recommending
But
that for our applicants
In my
that are
defense, I
trying to
wasn't
join.
in the Air Force yet, so
fair,
it wasn't
fair.
it wasn't an airman making that call.
No, it wasn't.
It was this dumb kid going, I didn't make healthy choices, and here I am. Now I have to lose some weight. So, but yeah, I know we're making light of the situation,
Yeah,
but if weight is a concern, talk to a recruiter, and they'll be able to set you on the right path to get you to yes. And if I can do it, you can do it. I've seen some pretty incredible stories. One of the guys that I served with at my last duty station in Maryland, I'll give a shout out. I'm probably going to mess up the numbers and stuff, but is Tech Sergeant Dishinat, Timothy Dishinat. He lost a ton of weight. Like I'm talking like hundreds of pounds to join the Air Force, and
That's
is like a
amazing.
health nut now, dedicated to his running routine and his workout routine.
I love
Really, a really cool story.
That's very, very cool. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
I went,
so,
Bronson McDonald. I can say his name now because he's out.
Oh, there
but
you
he lost over 100 pounds and became a PJ.
jeez,
That's amazing.
That's it's
That's
nuts.
amazing.
So success
Living
stories are
nuts,
everywhere.
too.
And
If
it
you
all
want it,
happened.
come get it.
And it
We're
happened
here.
because they went and talked to a recruiter, and the recruiter was like, "We got work to do." So, and if you don't have work to do, well, just get you in faster. Next question.
I am currently 40 years old and I'm seriously considered joining the Air Force next year. I'm wondering if it could be possible to start at 41. The answer is hard yes. Hard
42
yes.
as of
42 is the
recently.
new age. So
Yep.
please, if you are considering this, make it sooner than later.
Go talk to a recruiter
Go talk to your
tomorrow.
recruiter now.
Or today,
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
Make it happen immediately. And if you don't know how to find your recruiter, you can go on airforce.com and it's going to have the where to find a recruiter is going to be right there. You can go and you can find a recruiter for active duty Air Force, the Air National Guard, the Air Force Reserve, and Space Force. So
Yep.
please go get that information.
Yep, airforce.com is going to be your best resource. Call in that number in the bottom left part of your screen. That is
Find a
also
recruiter.
good one.
Find a recruiter, and we always say too, please, if you call somebody or text them or email them, and you're not getting a timely mannered, response, please go direct with the chats, and we'll get you in direct with that recruiter. Because sometimes recruiters are either on leave, they're sick, they're human beings, right? Like we want to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to make sure that you are being taken care of in all aspects. And if you can't find a recruiter, find one of us. The people that are on this screen will be more than happy to get you in contact directly with who you need to talk to, and you can ask us questions as well.
Yep. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that is
I mean,
literally what
obviously,
we're here
we're
for.
only here every couple weeks for a couple hours, but
Yeah.
that's part of what this show is for too, is to supplement those recruiters and to
Yes.
help
So
them.
you have at least a
get you-
name and a face to
Yep.
say, hey, I know these two people. Well, they may not have the answers, but they know who has the answers.
Yeah, rat us out.
Yeah, right, yeah. We're
Call
okay with
somebody
that.
important in the Air Force and be
Yeah,
like,
and be like, I called Cerny, I called Johnson, and they didn't call me back. Rat me out.
there
I'm
you
cool
go.
with that. Do it.
I'll call you back. All right, let's do another question. Can I go from enlisted to officer via the scholarship programs if I have 2 years left in my bachelor's? Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was our OTC.
So, quick little plug into what we can do on this show. If you've never joined us before, every one of our previous shows, and we've got a ton of them. We've been doing this for almost a year now, every 2 weeks. We save all the shows on the platform. So whatever you're watching it on now, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, you can find the playlist and you can actually go back and watch all of the old shows. We did one specific to ROTC. And we've done one specific to the academy.
Educations.
Yeah,
Yep.
education. So we've spent a ton of time talking about a lot of stuff with some really smart people that are in the education system inside the Air Force about how to join as an officer, how to cross over into being an officer once you've already joined as enlisted. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. So talk to a recruiter. Education is huge in the military.
Yes.
Even if you stay enlisted for your entire career, in order for certain levels of progression, you're expected to continue your personal education outside of the military. And if you are in a career field that has recognized, which most of our career fields do, you can get an associate's through the community college of the Air Force. So it's an actual associate's program for enlisted, and that's available to you for free.
Yeah.
And ask chat to blast questions. Blast questions, chat. I was
Blast
just handed
questions,
blast questions.
Right. And Captain Steele is a perfect example, right? Like as she introduced herself, she was a prior enlisted. Prior enlisted, got her education, and then became an officer. So, yes, very much so. And in the Air National Guard, I would say the majority of our officers were once enlisted.
Yep. And we would call those Mustangs, which there was some stuff on Facebook, bunch of traffic. Somebody was talking smack on Mustangs. I was like, we love our Mustang officers. That's just so cool. There's a ton of love for the Mustangs in all the branches.
Yeah.
Well, chat, as you heard me say it, because I read it off of the board that Master Sergeant Thomas held up, blast the comments.
We're blasting comments. Okay.
And then for our guests, what that means for us is we're going to start putting comments up on the screen.
And you guys are going to answer it.
And we're going to try to answer them as quickly as possible and see if we can go like rapid round, because we'll blast through some of these and then we'll wrap the show and we'll get out of here for a while. And I can actually say at the end of this one that we'll see you next year, because I think I said that last time and I was wrong.
You did.
Questions? Go.
If I'm certified already as a firefighter, would that help out if I join and become one in the Air Force?
Yes. While you will have to go to tech school to be trained through the Air Force, any knowledge that you have of being a firefighter in the civilian world, they're very similar. So they communicate and translate back and forth to each other. I think they still drive big trucks. They put a lot of waters out with fires. That's about where my knowledge of firefighting ends. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's the same thing with pararescue and firefighting. If you're a paramedic and you're a firefighter and the course has a paramedic course in the Air Force, you don't have to go to that course.
Yep. Yeah, if you've got certifications, they translate.
Fantastic.
Next question.
Next.
That was pretty quick. We can go faster.
What are the possibilities of finding a partner in the Air Force when joining single? I used to date a Marine, but we drifted when he started his night shift.
I know a ton of people. Yeah, this is not a quick answer question, but I know a ton of people.
I like
that.
I like that we're
my
like, this is a
husband
good
and I met
date.
in IED.
There you go.
See?
Not
There
only
you
did
go.
they meet while in the military,
Yep.
they met while deployed to one of the
I'm
places.
a
that
mil
we've
to
already
mil
talked
We didn't
as
start
well,
dating
right?
in the military. We didn't start dating while we were there, but we became friends and then started dating.
Yeah. She's like, don't get that twisted, okay? You're
My-
not starting rumors, people.
My wife now, she was the lifeguard at the pool when I was at NDOC 15 years ago.
Nice.
And
Oof.
did she like
See?
me at first? Not a chance.
No,
All
absolutely
right. Did
not.
I creep on her? A little bit. And now
Kept
she
your eye
has
on the
2 kids.
prize.
Yeah. So, persistence.
Persistence. Yeah.
Colonel Kern's like, no, I did none of those inappropriate things.
How about you, sir?
I don't know. I married late in life, so probably because of my military career. So I'm the wrong person to ask.
I mean,
all
that's
right, yeah.
that's another story.
That's another story,
Yeah, I know that a lot of times people that end up getting married to someone in the military while they're in the military, typically they came in single, obviously, and I mean, yeah, it's just when you put people together, it's this kind of crazy thing, because when you put people together in the military, we form such strong bonds. And we come together so quickly because of the way they move. We move around, we train, we go through some really hard times together, but we also get to celebrate the best parts of life together. And when you find that kind of ability to share that with somebody, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, I really like this, and I can stick with you and go all over the world together with you. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common to see people come in single and then join and marry somebody, end up with somebody that is also wearing the uniform. So, big old happy family.
Big old happy family.
Yep. All right, next question. We didn't answer that one very fast.
Has there been a tattoo update
Yes.
recently? Yep. Okay, so when I attempted to enlist with the Air Force back in 2016, I wasn't eligible because I had a tattoo on my palm. So, on my palm is not
Below the
going to
wrist.
be, yeah.
But
So
you
it's
can
gotta
talk
be-
to your recruiter and potentially get a waiver for that. So talk
Yes.
to your recruiter. We are looking at more aggressively what things that they will do a tattoo waiver for.
Yes.
And as long as it's nothing crazy or obscene or whatever. And then in that case, removal is always an option. The
I
most
don't think I've
recent,
ever seen one on the palm.
I've seen like a spider web.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like just kind of cool designs and stuff inside the palm because they move when you move your hand. So some of the big things for the recent ones, as long as it doesn't go below your wrist, you can have tattoos above the wrist as much as you want. As long as it doesn't go above the neck, and you're even allowed to have tattoos above the neck,
Yes.
above the collar line, as long as they take up, what is it, 25% or less, or is it?
Yeah,
what
it's
is
like
it?
it's like a quarter. Yeah,
It's like if
right
it's small, right, and if it's not distasteful, and then below the ankle, or is it? I don't remember. I know foot tattoos are fine. I
Yeah,
think.
foot tattoos are fine.
Yeah, so it's literally above the collar and past the wrist.
Yes.
You can have tattoos. If you have tattoos that are below the wrist or above the collar, talk to a recruiter and see if you can get a waiver for it, and go from there. So yeah, it has changed, but I would say one on the palm. Talk to a recruiter. Your chances are probably looking good. Okay, go next. Sorry.
What is the difference between Air Force Reserve and Air Force National Guard? I'm not answering this. I'm going to take it. Come on. Go, my guardsmen. All right. Hit it.
It's all about the statutory title that you're in. So the National Guard is codified in the Constitution as what was stated earlier, and they have authority to the governor as well as the President of the United States, whereas the Reserve is in a Title 10 status and reports directly to they're just the reserve component of the active Air Force. So it's only presidential authority, to keep it simple.
Boom.
That was an amazing answer.
That was an
great.
amazing answer.
Way better than my quick.
Mine would have
answers.
been 25 minutes later.
Exactly. That's why I
Cerny
was
would have
like,
been like, shut up.
That's why I was like, what do you mean? Quick fire. That was fantastic.
Rapid fire.
Thanks,
Next.
Colonel.
All right.
And
You can read this one. I shall allow it.
oh, thanks.
Oh, I got this one too. So we
man,
had
yeah.
we had aircraft that, well, not in California. Every state has to request. First of all, I'll just say in any kind of natural disaster, state usually has to request resources. And so in the wildfires that existed in the Pacific Northwest, we had aircraft that were circling over, helping the firefighters identify where the fire was going or spreading. And then we had airmen on the ground as well, TACPs, that would coordinate with the on-scene commanders to be able to adjust resources. So I would say that's mostly how we were integrated in the wildfires. But every state's going to be different. It's what they ask for.
Gotcha. Too easy.
That's very cool.
Next. Can you explain what SEER does? Yes. Next question.
DJ.
So, it actually correlates with humanitarian. Their main core job is to be able to survive in any biome, from snow to desert to it does not matter. And they teach people in the Air Force to be the best survival expert they can. And we actually have a survival course. It's roughly 3 weeks, but that's only 3 weeks. Their entire AFSC is on survival. They do reintegration as well. So if someone were to be a POW and they come back and we rescue them, then they're going to integrate them back into the United States. What else? They do scuba diving. A lot of our guys, especially at a reserve unit where I was before, our best flyers and best jumpers were SEER guys. But they are pretty much a jack of all trades. They're very, very good at everything. And I think the Air Force is the only SEER is like that AFSC. The Air Force is the only one that has an AFSC dedicated to survival.
I think you're right.
I think you're right as well.
Everyone else is just a 3-week course. So
Yep. Alrighty. Next question. What are some of the programs you have for graduates?
Like
What
high school graduates?
I'm guessing they're probably talking like graduates from college.
Graduates from college.
But we'll answer both questions. Some of the programs we have for graduates, if you've graduated high school and you have a high school diploma, we have programs in like 200 different career fields. So literally whatever you want to do. Do you need a high school degree to join the Air Force?
No, you do not.
GED.
So, yep.
And then if you have a degree after college, you have the opportunity to look at the officer side and use that degree to be an officer in your selected field. And there are also hundreds of options there. So really, honestly, it's a very broad question, and I'm not picking on you for it, but that is one of those things where you need to call a recruiter and say, hey, break it down for me. What are my options? Here's what I bring to the table. What can you do for me?
Yes.
And don't let them stop talking until you're happy. So we'll absolutely, if it's a degree from college, talk to an officer recruiter, and we'll take you.
Yep. And the Air National Guard and the Reserve also have officer programs as well. So it isn't just, if it doesn't work out just for an active duty side, don't forget that the Guard and the Reserve also can, sort you out if you're looking to go to the officer route.
Heck yeah. Next question. See, you're scrolling all over the place too fast now.
Yeah.
I'm watching him like go through because he's got to pick ones that go onto the screen, and so it's like click, 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 and he's having to go back where he was. All right, I'm done covering for you. You're on.
That's what I was saying. Blast out questions. A lot of them are questions, that you are
they
similar, or they can go on
Yep.
airforce.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions about our career fields and things we've been through and how we can talk on that stuff,
Once
that'd be great.
once you click on them, just uncheck those star. Can you join the Air Force at 37 and with a master's degree? Absolutely. And at 37, you're still 5 years under the requirement for the enlisted side. And what's the limit for officers?
I wasn't paying attention to the question.
That's okay.
I zoned
She's
out.
37
I
years
was
old.
reading. I was reading.
37 and a master's degree. What's the age limit for officers?
It's still it's 40.
35.
It is still
40?
Well, it is 40 with a waiver, right? So so it's 40 with a waiver. 35 is like the sweet space that we always ask you to be in, but 40 with a waiver.
Decide what you want to do, how you want to serve. Talk to a recruiter. They'll show you how you can best do that. And know that just because you have a degree doesn't mean you have to come in as an officer. I know plenty of enlisted guys and girls who have their masters, their doctorates, and they stay enlisted. So you pick what you want to do, make it work for you, and the master's degree just gives you more options, and you'll have the choice of both enlisted and officer. So talk to a recruiter, 100%. I'll wear that one out today.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Are you guys accepting DACA? What is DACA?
DACA. I think that's the
It's the Dreamers program.
the
isn't it?
Dreamers program. Yes. So it depends on the status. So if someone has a permanent residency card, which I believe DACA or the Dreamers program wouldn't, would depend on the status of it. The answer is going to be no. To come into the Air National Guard, Air Force Reserve, or active duty Air Force, you must be a U.S. citizen or hold a permanent residency card, which is INS 55, right? So if you do not have an INS 55 permanent residency card with 10 years, you cannot affiliate. So those are the two pieces with it. Now, you can become a United States citizen if you have a permanent residency card. You can go through the process quicker, and you can actually become a U.S. citizen at basic training. But prior to that, that's it. Those are the two standards. There's no kind of ifs, ands, or buts. There's no waiver for that.
Boom. All right. I just realized it's been an hour and a half.
So I got one last question.
Okay.
So this is the question that I got for everybody, and we're gonna do Sergeant Thomas first, then the captain,
I see.
then
You're working your way up.
then Colonel Curtin's gonna leave us. Okay, so we're gonna make it quick and sweet if we can. But can you describe a particular rewarding moment or interaction that you had while providing aid, or during any type of mission set that you've had? So a rewarding moment or interaction. It's something that you're really proud of, right? So
time.
Sergeant Thomas already told us, a really fantastic story. But if you can just, something that you're really proud of that, like, damn, I did do that. Like the imposter syndrome, like, dang, I did do that. That's pretty cool with me. But something that you're really proud of.
That's really tough.
It's tough, right? Because
to be put on the spot on that, because I'm trying to be.
that's why I gave the colonel
humble.
a long time to think about it.
Anyone else have their answers already? Can jump in.
Yeah,
really
we're
tough
like,
question.
no. It is
I
a
mean-
tough question, right? It is a tough question, and
Can
you're right. It's tough to like, but we don't want you being humble in this. We want you to like, I want you to brag and swag, baby, brag and swag. Like that's what this is all about. Like, like own it, wear it.
It's funny. So like I said in the beginning, I was a PJ. I did a few missions here and there, and did a lot of good stuff overseas, even stateside over in Alaska. But as I moved through my career, I became an instructor. I talked a lot of people off the ledge of quitting, and then just mentoring. And I can say the same with recruiting. For the last couple of years, I traveled the country and did a lot of motivational speaking and mentoring. I think that's one thing that I've grasped over the years is the ability to change someone's mindset and spark that gene expression, like we like to call it. And I think that's one thing I'm proud of is the amount of people I've talked to where they said, there's no way I can do this, to at the end and said, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's probably my proudest moments.
That's legacy stuff right there. That's legacy stuff.
Yeah. All right, Captain, you're up.
Oh man, this is a tough
Oh,
question. I mean, I'm gonna kind of lean on what you said. Being in the Air National Guard has really been a moment for me because this is not my number one place. My number one place is outside of here. I'm a nurse. I'm so many other things, and doing the Guard 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year for 20 years, and to get people to understand that it's a really important entity to the Air Force, and we are here for a reason, and getting people to stay in and getting people to join us and bring their skills and integrate them into the Air Force is a really unique skill. So I would say just being a part of this is one of my proudest moments.
I love
That's
it.
cool.
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Thanks, man.
All right. Lieutenant Colonel Curtin, take us home.
So I guess I can use a deployed example. I guess it's more exciting. So I would just say, as we transition, I would say early in my deployments, it was more still going and, finding people that were a threat to what we were doing. And then I also was there through the transition to the counterinsurgency mission. But I think what I can take away from all of it was in 2005, I was outside of Tikrit, Iraq. And so they had their first national election with a constitutional ballot. And so as a tactical air control party member, our primary job is to provide, close air support to avoid fratricide. And I'm aligned with Army units at the time. But what the Army units were doing was providing the security so people could go out and vote. And so what I think was awesome about that was we enabled, or we were a part of history enabling the Iraqis to vote in their first election. And so to be a part of that was pretty awesome.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. Wow. To have a hand and be part of something that's historic like that. Yeah. To that level. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap
That
the
is
show.
a perfect way to end it.
All right. Colonel
Can
Curtin.
I add one last thing? Can I add
please
just one
sir.
last
add one
thing?
more thing,
I
sir.
saw,
Yeah, of course.
I saw a comment from some guy asking who my favorite pilot was. Do you know who that was? So I just want to
My
say
favorite.
it's not Tony Ford.
Oh, it's not Tony Ford.
Wow.
In your
Called
face.
out.
I take it that was
I
him
could
that
stick with the Air Force answer and say it's CQ Brown, right?
Hey,
there
there
you
you go. That is not only Air Force anymore. That is DOD.
Yeah. Yes.
Love that guy.
Yep.
Cool. Very cool stuff. Well, Colonel Curtin and Captain Steele, as well as our very own Master Sergeant Thomas and Senior Master Sergeant Johnson, thank you guys so very, very much for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us for a couple hours
Thank
this
you, guys.
afternoon. I know that it would have been a much different show if we had to answer some of these questions because I don't know some of these answers. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. For everybody else out there joining us, we will see you next year. I don't know which date exactly, but I do know that we are giving ourselves a little bit of time off to spend time with family. So happy holidays to everybody out there. We will be back. Keep your eye on all of the pages. And without further ado,
Yeah. Bye-bye. Be safe.
see y'all
Thanks.
later.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Back and Forth, brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.
in the